The fifth session is chaired by Professor Abhyuta Gaudam, Associate Professor, Department of English, Government College for Teacher Education, Dharamshala, Himachal Pradesh, India. We are glad to have you here, ma'am.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me. An absolute pleasure. It's always good to be associated with this forum and to listen to such insightful papers. Uh, Without wasting much time, I would like to ask the first presenter to kindly present her paper. Hemraj Bansal sir is not present, I think, in the session. He's the first presenter. So I would request Soumya Dimbri. Soumya Dimbri, please. Are you here?
Yes, ma'am. Am I
Okay, so
audible?
Soumya, yeah, you are going to present your paper on what right do I have to have a child, reproductive technology as a means of empowerment in Kawakami's breast and eggs.
Listen. Yes.
And you are a PhD research scholar at Christ University, Bangalore. So all the best, and please start your paper.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. So, feminist debates surrounding the use of reproductive technologies, they have existed for ages, and the nature of the debate, it only continues to evolve given the current times. In 2020, the Japanese novelist Miko Kawakami wrote Breast and Eggs, which was translated into English and it became an international bestseller. In her work, Kawakami, while her various female characters, she dwells on the question of what it means to be a woman. And Natsuko is the protagonist of a novel. She is a single asexual woman in her 30s who wishes to have a child, and that is why she turns towards the world of artificial insemination in Japan. Now, most debates surrounding reproductive technology, they center women who are dealing with infertility issues or divorced women, but it is rare for an asexual character to be given such representation because Natsuko is someone who can form a romantic attachment to a man, but she's sexually repulsed. So her journey towards becoming a mother is a journey in which she constantly questions and is constantly questioned over her right to have a child. Now, Natsuko is a successful author, so unlike most single women in Japan, she's not struggling financially. She has the resources to grant a stable life to her child, but despite that, she faces heavy opposition in the patriarchal society of Japan. So the novel ponders over debates regarding the ethics of donor conception. Is it okay to bring a child into the world by donor conception? And donor conception refers to the process of having a baby using donated sperm, eggs, or embryos through self insemination or fertility treatments such as IVF, in vitro fertilization. Natsuko, she attends a conference where a woman deems donor conception as being all about the egos of the doctor and the parents, and she stresses that children need to be raised by real families in real homes in an atmosphere full of love and responsibility. So here she establishes a real family as a heteronormative couple with kids, kids that have been brought into the world without the use of reproductive technology. Why? Because she believes that God will give children to those couples who are ready to be parents. And Natsuko here raises her argument by asking, do you really think that there is something or someone that can determine which families are ready for a child? What exactly qualifies as a real family or a real home? So we can say that Natsuko has to battle with societal views of what a real family means, and at the same time, she has to deal with the exclusion of asexual women from donor conception communities. When she goes through infertility blogs, she realizes that reproductive technology is designed for couples, and it makes her wonder who has the right to have a child? Does not having a partner or not wanting to have sex nullify the right to have a child? And again, that's because reproductive technology, debates surrounding it, they really center asexual women, their desire to have a child, or the loneliness that they face when they decide to partake on the journey towards motherhood. So there are times when Natsuko finds herself questioning whether she's a woman after all. So in Breast and Eggs, we see the seemingly contradictory concepts of both compulsory heterosexuality and heteropessimism being ingrained in Japanese society. So compulsory heterosexuality, that's a concept that Adrienne Rich gave in her 1980s essay, Compulsory Heterosexuality and Lesbian Existence. So the theory conveys that women in all cultures, they are made to believe that their innate preference in relationships is for cisgender men. Rich writes that women get married to survive economically and because they don't want their children to be ostracized by society. But apart from that, it's also because heterosexual romance, it has been presented as this great female adventure, duty, and fulfillment for a woman. Heteropessimism is a term coined by Arthur Sarason in 2019, and it refers to this attitude of despair, embarrassment, disappointment over the state of heterosexual relationships, especially being a part of such a relationship. So it usually points to men as being the root of the problem, but despite this pessimism, women do not break away from the heterosexual relationship. And that is due to years of conditioning by compulsory heterosexuality and also the reality of a patriarchal society. So no matter how irredeemable or hopeless they feel the relationship is, they stay in it. That's why no matter how disappointing male partners prove to be, or how much of the responsibilities that come with marriage and kids have to be unfairly shouldered by women, Natsuko is still expected to have a male partner and she's expected to have a child without taking recourse to reproductive technology. So Natsuko's journey towards motherhood, it proves to be a risky one because she's dealing with the underground world of artificial insemination in Japan, which lacks legal regulations. Artificial insemination is a fertility procedure involving inserting sperm into a person's uterus, and it is only permitted for married couples. So, for single women like Natsuko, they have to turn to third party donors on the internet. And according to medical professionals, the underground method of receiving semen from strangers, it has inherent health risks and it is going to increase the risk of sexually transmitted diseases. Men are supposed to simply donate their sperm to women in need. There's no sexual intercourse required, which is why Natsuko, who's sex repulsed, she opts for this process. So when Natsuko goes to meet her donor, he brags about the quality of his sperm and how it's guaranteed to lead to a child. But it soon becomes clear in the conversation that he's using the power imbalance that is inherent in the situation to force her into sexual activities. So he tells her, whatever the case, there's no substitute for what nature intended, beats the syringe any day. But Natsuko does not take him up on his offer, and she leaves his presence feeling like a survivor reaching safety. Ultimately, she takes the help of a man named Aizawa, who himself is a donor conceived person, and she's clear about wanting to raise the baby on her own. Despite that, when they visit the infertility clinic, they have to go under the guise of a married couple. The doctor, given Natsuko's age, he gives her the go ahead for artificial insemination, and 8 months and 5 tries later, she becomes pregnant. So, reproductive technology itself is a means for empowerment for single women like Natsuko, but the issue is that the access to reproductive technology is controlled by patriarchal forces and it places single women in very vulnerable positions. When the government cuts off their access to sperm banks, single women have to turn to third party donors on the internet. They have to rely on shady deals that are taking place in the underground market of artificial insemination in Japan. One way or another, they are going to rely on a man to help them gain access to such technology. And there's a proposed legislation in Japan which might make things worse. It might take effect from this year. And this new law will prohibit lesbians and single women in Japan from having a child through the process of sperm donation. So Kozo Okino, he's the lawmaker involved in this legislation. He argues that children's rights are most easily protected by legally married parents with joint custody, and that assisted reproductive technology should not be pursued at the expense of the well-being of children. Japan does not recognize same-sex marriages. So basically, Aquino's arguments is reinforcing compulsory heterosexuality, and it makes it clear that the government is only seeing heterosexual couples with kids as real families. Now, there are single women and same-sex couples who are ready to raise children in a loving manner, but that is deemed unnatural, and consequently, that is deemed as harmful for the children. This novel was translated in English in 2020. In 2021, abortion in Poland, it became illegal in all cases, apart from when the mother's health is at risk or when pregnancy is the result of a criminal act. In 2022, the US Supreme Court, it officially reversed Roe versus Wade. So by doing so, it declared that the constitutional rights to abortion no longer exist. So whether women are being denied the right to have abortion or they are being denied the right to have kids, the arguments are always framed in terms of the well-being of children. But when men in power, they take control over the autonomy women should have over their bodies, it is an injustice both to the women and to the children involved in this matter. As long as control lies elsewhere, women are going to find it incredibly hard to attain autonomy over their bodies. And as Vika, Natsuko's friend, observes, no man will ever understand the things that really matter to a woman. I mean the pain, how much it hurts to be a woman. She muses over how men are placed on a pedestal from the second they are born, but they don't even realize it. So men say that they are in pain too, and no one is denying that. But the question is, the difference is who's putting them through that pain. She goes on to say, think about women. No matter how you see it, who's actually responsible for the majority of the pain that women feel? So, despite this, we have women bravely navigating within the set of constraints that they are placed within in a patriarchal society, and they are finding ways to subvert the expectations that are placed on them. Natsuko does go on to give birth to a healthy baby girl, and her friend tells her, if you can get pregnant on your own and become a mother, or even if you can't, but if you write about everything that happens in the process, do you have any idea how much that would mean to so many women? And as her friend Rika reassures Natsuko, it is all about all you need is the will of a woman. So Breast and Eggs is both an empowering narrative in terms of how Natsuko, a single asexual woman, she fulfills her dream of becoming a mother in a highly patriarchal society with systemic discrimination. And it is also a narrative that seeks to empower other women like Natsuko who find themselves in a similar predicament. Thank you.
Well, congratulations, Soumya. It was a very well researched paper, and I must congratulate you for choosing a subject which is so different. When we talk about gender
Thank
studies, you've been talking about, like, we hear topics on other relations, but this is a very new concept of asexual woman, somebody who has purposely and she has kind of selected this path of having a baby without having any kind of a
you.
sexual relationship.
Correct.
Congratulations. And I
Thank
would just like to ask you that you talked about the attitude of the sperm donor, some kind of a
you.
patriarchy being displayed there. Can you just throw a little bit more light on that?
Uh,
What
what
kind
I
of an
mean to
attitude?
say is that more light on that aspect. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So what I mean to say is that because only married couples are being allowed access to sperm banks, single women are being cut off from such access. So
Mm-hmm.
then they have no other choice but to resort to people on the internet who say that they are willing to donate their sperm, and they
No,
have to believe in their.
I was talking about the attitude that of the sperm donor that you mentioned in the paper.
Ah, the attitude. Yes. So basically, the sperm donor is aware that this woman is in a very vulnerable position. So
Mm-hmm.
he tries to coerce her into sexual activities. He says that he's only here to give her the sperm, but during the conversation, he repeatedly alludes to the fact that conception happens most naturally or at its best when it happens in the natural way, which is not what Natsuko wants at all. She's sex repulsed. But he repeatedly tries to coerce her into that particular activity, and Natsuko actually feels sorry for any woman who decided to go down that path. She
Mm-hmm.
escapes his presence, but she feels very drained. That is the point in which she wonders if she'll ever be able to have a child because she needs to
Mm-hmm.
rely on a man, and men are taking advantage of their position in such a manner. And there are no legal regulations in place. So that
Yes, so
is
I think that
where.
was an example of patriarchal attitude that people have. And you've really
Exactly.
thrown light on that very nicely and very elaborately also. Congratulations.
Thank
And
you.
we'll move on to the next speaker, Rituparna Priyadarshini. Are you here? Yes, she's here.
Yes, ma'am. Good afternoon, ma'am. Or should
Good
I say?
afternoon. And you are presenting your paper on the unappreciated and mistreated women characters in Indian mythology, a study of Haldar Nag's poetic works.
Yes, ma'am.
So please start your paper. All the best.
Thank you. Ma'am, just give me a minute. I'll So, ma'am, my topic is the unappreciated and mistreated women characters in Indian mythology, a study of Haldarnag's poetic works. So, as we know, in India, women characters have been glorified in Indian mythology, and in some texts they have also been represented as demonesses. So, in whatever be it in a positive way or a negative way, women characters have always been given a sort of importance. Uh, that you cannot find in the modern text even. Their role has never been snubbed. It has given readers some of the most strongest female characters that we can find, that our Indian mythology has to offer. But some female characters, uh, in the religious or mythological texts that we have had read since our childhood, have resembled the characters of the protagonist in many ways, but have been glozed over or have been pushed to the side as secondary characters. Some characters have also been inadequately represented or misrepresented, and their stories have remained in shadows. It has also impacted their representation in further texts, because for example, uh, a poem which I'll talk about in my presentation, Haldarnag's poem, Mother Putana, in which he has described the demoness Putana as a love-lorn mother, and not as a demoness that she is, that which she is represented in many texts as. But before that, I'll say a few lines about the author, Haldarnag, who is a Sambalpuri poet from Bargarh, Odisha, and he is also popularly known as Lok Kabiratna. He writes in Kosli language, which is the language of the Western Odisha, and many of his poems have been translated into English and have been also published as an anthology. He has also been awarded the Padma Shri in the year 2016, and his poetry are specifically on contemporary issues, religion, and are even and can even be perceived as a tool to fight against all sort of social injustice and inequality. So the two poems of his that I have taken for reference are Mother Putna and the Great Sati Urmila. So, in the poem Mother Putna, Haldarnag has described Putna as a bereaved mother, distraught by the death of her child, and not as the demoness that she has been described in many mythological and religious texts. She is described as a devout mother who merges into the Lord by breastfeeding him. He has tried to present a more human side of the character that has been a subject of hatred for centuries. Even in Garga Samhita and the Brahma Vaivarta Purana, uh, we can see it. These religious texts have described Putana as a woman who, in her previous birth, was Ratnamala, the daughter of King Bali, and who was once overcome by a strong desire of having Vamana, a form of Lord Vishnu, as her son, and suckle her. So we can see that even in the religious text, they have in some of the religious texts, in fact, that are not as read as Ramayana or Mahabharat. So in those texts, Putana has been described as a mother who once had a wish to have the Lord as her child, because she was so mesmerized by the Lord's appearance in his Vamana form that she wanted to have him as her child. And it is that desire of hers that Lord Krishna wanted to fulfill, and in his next birth as Krishna, he fulfilled her wishes by, but in a more in a way that has been portrayed as that has portrayed her as a demoness who was trying to kill Lord Krishna. But here Haldarnag has tried to show a more human side of this demoness by portraying her as a mother who has lost her child, and who is longing for the warmth and for the love of a child, and it is that love that draws her to Krishna and forces her to pick him up and make him suckle her breasts. So, contrary to what we have read in the religious text and what we have heard from the various stories or folk tales, Putana is has been portrayed as a dedicated mother. So in this, so Haldernak, he has tried to shed light on the neglected characters or mistreated characters of the mythological texts, and has tried to give an importance to these characters and their stories, and has also tried to, and in a way has tried to change the narrative that has been going on for centuries. In the next poem, The Great Sati Urmila, Urmila, the wife of Lakshman, can also be referred to as the unsung heroine of the Ramayana. She has been acknowledged by Nag for her sacrifices and wisdom. She has been described as a great sati who is no less than goddess Sita and Mandodari. As we know in the Ramayana text, as we have heard since childhood, that the two great satis in Ramayana were Sita and Mandodari. And I'd like to mention here that Haldarnak uses the term sati in a way that he wants to portray these women as strong characters with a strong willpower and with a strong willpower and deep dedication and devotion. So he uses the term sati time and again to describe these strong women with fierce nature. And so in this poem, he talks about Urmila, the wife of Lakshman, who has been pushed to the side by the narrators. He says, Haldanak says that the character Urmila has been pushed to the side not by the plot of the Ramayana but by the narrator in the way of narrating, in the way they have narrated the whole text, or in the way they have written the text. It has been so uh, narrated that these characters, these strong characters, have been pushed to the sides. So it has been regarded as one of his best poems, The Great Sati Urmila. And Urmila has been in the text, she has been regarded as a Mahasati. For when Lord Lakshman dedicated his life to serve Lord Ram and Mata Sita, Sati Urmila prayed in abstinence, sacrificing all things material. These are the exact words that I have quoted in my paper. Haldanak says that Urmila can even be regarded as a Mahasati because she dedicated her whole life to her husband, and she prayed in abstinence, and she stayed apart from her husband for many years, and she prayed in abstinence, and she sacrificed all things because she belonged to a royal family, because she was a queen. She sacrificed everything and dedicated herself to uh, her husband. In the same poem, he has also talked about another female character from the Ramayana, Sulochana, the wife of Meghnath, and he has also described her as a woman of virtue. Despite the fact that she belonged to the demon clan, Nag describes her as a sati whose chastity even the gods cannot match. The term has been used in Nag's poem to describe the fierce nature of these women and the strong willpower, deep dedication, and devotion. The term sati has been used in that sense and not in any other way. In the end, Nag comments that the war fought between Lakshman and Meghnath was in fact a war between the two satis, Urmila and Sulochana. And he also speaks about a higher form of love and dedication in his poems. In Ramayana, we have always talked about the trials and tribulations that the main characters will go went through. The Mata Sita goes through. We talk about these characters, but those characters that are referred to as secondary or are not even as spoken of, even for example in the TV shows, like in the Ramayana, we see that these characters are nowhere to be found. So these characters have been pushed to the sides, and they have not been mentioned in any way, or they have not been given as importance as they should have been. So Haldarnak, through his poem, is trying to shed light on these powerful women characters that who are at par with the other protagonists of the religious text, such as Mata Sita or Mandodari. And in a way, he is trying to, through his poems, he is trying to even um, talk about women in our society in general. He's trying to in a way lift.
Rituparna, we can't hear you. I think she's going to join back.
Hello.
Yes, please carry on.
Sorry, ma'am, disconnected. There's some network issue here.
Mhm.
So, ma'am, I'll conclude my presentation here, and to conclude, I'll just like to say that Haldar Nag is an Odia poet who has not been, even though he is a Padma Award, he has not been given as much importance as he should have been. Because he talks about the contemporary social issues of our modern era that even women of today are facing, and even he talks about the betterment of every deprived class, caste, or gender, despite of the caste, class, or gender. And in his poems, we can see that through his narration of the religious text or the religious mythological characters, he has tried to talk about the women of our society in general as well. Because he talks about the women that have potential but have been overshadowed by by some way or other. Like in this poem, in the poem Great Satya Urmila, he says that it is not the plot of the Ramayana that has overshadowed this uh, phenomenal character, but it is the narrator who has pushed her to the sides. It is the way the whole text has been narrated that has pushed her to the side. And in a way, he is also trying to say that it he's also passing a remark upon the condition of women in our society as well, who have been pushed to the sides despite the fact that they have potential in them, despite the fact that uh, uh, they have certain qualities that can make them sorry, ma'am, I'm getting I'm
You
forgetting.
they need to be on the center stage and their story needs to be told and narrated, and they need to be presented in a very well manner as they have been marginalized. That's what you mean to say.
Yes, ma'am. Actually, ma'am, there's been some disturbance in the background, so I'm getting distracted time and again.
So
So,
that's okay, Rituparna, but I would just like to ask you one question if you're comfortable.
yes, ma'am.
So you're talking about this poet who's an Odia poet, you said.
Yes,
Does he
ma'am.
write does he write in Odia?
He writes in Odia and Kosli language, which is a language of Western Odisha, a tribal language, in fact.
Okay, so he writes in a tribal language of Odisha and Odia
Yes, ma'am.
also. And has his works been translated or have you worked on his works that are in Odia only?
Ma'am, I'm currently working on his works, which have been translated into five poetry collections and have been published as well.
So they are translated into English?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, so you have worked on them, on these poems that have been translated
Yes,
into
ma'am.
English. So, well, I must congratulate you. You have presented a very well researched paper and you actually researched well on the poetry of this particular poet. And you mentioned about the marginalized characters. If I'm not wrong, were there three or four that you deliberated upon?
Ma'am,
Putana, Urmila, and Sulochana.
yes, ma'am.
Oh, okay, so you feel that they have not been represented well in the mythology, and that is why he's written his poems on these three women.
Yes, ma'am.
Uh,
I feel that like Putana, was mistreated as a character because her negative side has been portrayed in the religious text, and also has also impacted the way she has been represented in in further text as that has been written after the religious text. And in the contemporary era, like whatever TV show we watch or everything, they do not portray the real side of Putna. We only get to see Putna as the demoness that she has been described in the religious texts and the folk tales.
And you have even mentioned something about the former life that she lived, and
Yes,
some
ma'am.
tale of Vamana where she desired to be with him, and that is the desire that actually led her to have Krishna as her. mm she had developed motherly affection for.
Yes, ma'am. She had developed a motherly affection, but when Vamana, the form of Lord Vishnu, when he killed her father,
Mhm.
she then she then developed a vengeance to take avenge to avenge her father, and then to fulfill both of her desires, to have her as to have him as a child and to kill him. Krishna in his next birth
Okay.
made her made her the demoness that she was, so that she could even make him suckle her, as well as try to kill him.
Okay, that's great. So thank you so much
Thank you,
for
ma'am.
adding this aspect also to our knowledge. We did not know about this Odia poet, and we'll certainly read about his poems. Thank you so much. We move
Thank
on
you.
to the next speaker.
Sorry, ma'am, for the disturbances, because there's a lot of disturbance in the background here, so I'm not able to focus as well. Sorry,
That's
ma'am,
okay. We
for that.
can't hear anything, but of course, your voice was a little bit, I think there was some signal problem. So it's okay, perfectly fine. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am.
Next speaker is Dodla Saikavyasri and Professor V. Ravi Naidu. So, Dodla
Hello, ma'am.
Saikavyasri, are you here?
Yes, ma'am. Good afternoon, ma'am.
Okay, good afternoon. And you're presenting your paper on Hearing the Silent Women of Indian Myth through Kavita Kane's novels.
Yes, ma'am.
So, another paper on the women in mythology. Please carry on. All the best.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. The Indian epics, the Ramayana and Mahabharata, are an integral part of Indian psyche. It is believed that all our values, customs, ideas are drawn from these epics. Therefore, Ramayana and Mahabharata have been the most favored sources for retelling and revisiting. The revisionist myth-making is a literary technique which which aims at representing the marginalized sections and also aims to create space for the less dominant cultural groups in the society. Many recent writers are using this revisionist myth-making as a literary technique to reinterpret the olden myths like Ramayana and the Mahabharata. Kavita Kane also belongs to this category. Coming to Kavita Kane, she is a well known contemporary Indian mythologist and also a feminist revisionist myth maker. She served as, she served as a senior journalist for 20 years in the Times of India and in Daily News and also in various other media houses. She focuses on retelling Indian myths and addresses those aspects which are rarely found in the original epics. And she also chooses the lesser known women characters from the Indian epics and voices them in a remarkable way. As we all know, the Ramayana and Mahabharata and many other myths are patriarchal narratives. So it made these narratives uh, many characters, it gave scope to many characters uh, to highlight which are righteous and which eventually follow the dharma and gave them a heroic role, and some characters which are against dharma are portrayed as villains, etc., villains and demons, etc. But there are many women characters who are mistreated and misrepresented in the mythology. There are many characters who never got scope in the mythology. Kavita Kane focuses on these women characters who are ignored and portrays them in a remarkable way by giving them a feministic voice. Coming to her first character, which she portrayed in her first novel, Karna's Wife, an Outcast Queen. Um, It depicts the life of Urvi, who is supposed to be the second wife of Karna. Karna is the unsung hero and unpraised hero of the Indian epic, the Mahabharata. Coming to Urvi, uh, she's never seen as never deserved a prominent space in the original epic Mahabharata. But Kavita Kane voiced her and narrated the total Mahabharata, narrated the selective episodes of Mahabharata through her voice. Urvi, the only daughter of her family, only child of the king, and she was pampered a lot by her father since childhood. This allowed her to be independent and got the freedom to do the things of her own choice. So this gave her scope to excel in horse riding, and she even attended Gurukul and studied Ayurveda. She often goes to the war field and also treats the wounded soldiers in the war battlefield. All these things women are restricted to do in those days, but Urvi used to do all these things. She grew up by breaking the social norms in the society. So later in her later life, it was her Swayamvara which brought a drastic change in her life. Swayamvara in general, we all know it is an archery contest where a princess will be given as a prize to the prince who won in the contest. Being a princess and a woman of free will, she does not want herself to be a prize and she wants to marry the person whom she loves. So her strong will could be seen here, strong willpower could be seen here. She does not want to be a prize because woman is not a gift or a prize. She thought that women have her own choices, her own feelings, and this aspect could be seen in this particular scene. During the Swayamvara, besides all the princes, there was Karna, an outcast king and a son of charioteer. He was just not even an invitee, he was just present as a friend of another prince, Duryodhana. Uh, Urvi chooses Karna and garlanded him as her life partner. She chose him as her life partner. This made her this made her mm, had to be treated as an outcast by her own family and her cousins, her maids, everyone in the society. Only with this marriage, with this particular marriage, a Kshatriya princess became an outcast queen. For this deed, she paid all the humiliation from the society. There were not even a minute people use it to humiliate her. People utilize it to humiliate her. And even after suffering such humiliation, she never let Karna know her suffering. She never uttered a single word about humiliation because she was in love with Karna. She loved Karna and she chose him. This made her to be silent, and she has been a constant supporter of Karna, and she even heals the pain of Karna, but she never shared her pain. Thus, she could be seen as a silent sufferer throughout her life. Not only with this the aspect of marriage, there are many aspects in her life. That one particular aspect is Draupadi's Vastrapaharana. During Draupadi's Vastrapaharana, Karna was present there. Uh, this made Urvi furious, and she even questioned her husband. She raised her voice against the deed of Karna for being a part in this Draupadi's Vastrapaharana. Thus, she questioned the ill treatment and dishonor of women in the society. Kavita Kane portrayed this particular character, Urvi, as an individual and empowered woman, as she studied and she knows the Ayurveda and everything. Moreover, a great healer, not only physical wounds but also mental wounds. And she also breaks the stereotype. She's also portrayed as breaks the stereotypes that are existence in the society. Coming to her next novel, Sita's Sister, it revolves around Urmila, silent character in the Ramayana. Urmila, most of us know her as a Sita's sister or the wife of Lakshmana, but nothing about her existence, her role in the family, or nothing. But Kavita Kane voiced her in a very remarkable way. It is to be mentioned that Valmiki, the author of Ramayana, wrote only 3 lines about Urmila in the original epic. This particular character is utilized just as a secondary character or a marginalized thing, just for the sake of progress of the plot, but that doesn't mean it deserved much importance and anything. It is seen as a subsided character. It doesn't deserve any importance in the original epic. So Urmila, we know her as Lakshmana's wife, who used to be sleeping for 14 years while they were in exile, and she does not want to disturb her husband brotherly duties and all. But besides that, she is seen as a great scholar and an artist. She used to attend scholarly sessions with her father since her childhood itself. See, whenever any rishis or great scholars came to Midila to visit her father, Urmila used to accompany her father and get participated in those scholarly sessions. She used to talk and learn more and more knowledge from those sacred rishis and great scholars. Thus, she evolved herself as a great scholar. It was not only about her scholarly things. She also uh, uh, she also raised her voice against the patriarchal norms of the society. Moreover, during the Vanavasa, while Rama was leaving to Vanavasa, he does not want to take Sita with him because she don't want her to be suffered. But it is Urmila who questioned Rama, what is the comfort for a woman without her husband's shade, without her husband's company? What sort of comfort are you talking about? This made this gave a chance to Sita to accompany Rama for the exile of 14 years. But while it comes to Lakshmana, he denied Urmila to accompany him. He just want her to take care of the family. So this made her, even she questioned her brother-in-law for her sister's happiness, but she could not attain her own happiness. This thing can be seen throughout the novel. She was silent sufferer for herself. She had been sacrificed many things for her sisters, whether it is Sita, the Mandavi, or the Shrutakirti. She even questioned Bharata while leaving to a hermitage, leaving Mandavi. She even questioned him. You are well at following your brotherly duties. What about husband duties? Without you, how could my sister survive? What sort of punishment are you giving to her? So she raised her voice against these patriarchal situations in the society where a woman is expected to take care of the family. Uh, Women doesn't deserve any appreciation, or women doesn't women choice doesn't get respected, whatever it may be. Uh, but even after everybody left to exile, she was the only woman who remained strong and maintained the family relations. Everybody was broken in the family due to the king Dashratha's death. It was that time Urmila remained very strong and take care of all the 3 queens and the rest of the family members. She even managed the court affairs as there were no king and everybody left to the hermitage and the exile. She even managed the court affairs also. Though Urmila was seen as a silent sufferer inside, she was a perfect representation of capable women outside. Uh, Kavita Kane gave her a feministic approach as well as a humanistic approach. It could be seen when she met Kaikeyi, the reason for the exile, who made Rama and Sita, Lakshmana, everybody go to exile. When she met Kaikeyi, she came to know the reason that uh, if Rama doesn't go to exile, or Rama is up the, I mean, Rama gets be the king, he will be destined to premature death. So this Kaikeyi knows even before her marriage. In order to avoid that, she asked Rama to go on exile. She made a plan on this. This very humanistic approach is could be seen through Urmila. And coming to her third novel, Menaka's Choice, it is about Menaka, an Apsara who resides in heaven. She is a beautiful woman who was born during the churning of ocean of milk. Every man in the world, heaven, or whatever it may be, wants her to be their.
Sorry for interrupting. Could you please rush up and try to finish it fast, please?
Okay, ma'am. Okay, ma'am. Thank you. So this particular character, Menaka, she wants to lead a happy family life, but it was never allowed in entire her lifespan because being a celestial being and an Apsara, her primary duty is to follow the orders of King Indra. Even she had to leave Sekuntala and abide her motherly feelings for due to obey the King Indra. Finally, I'd like to conclude. Uh, uh, Through these characters, Kavita Kane voiced the silent sufferers of Indian myths with a feministic approach. So, this particular voice can be seen as the voice of readers. She depicted oppression of women, which could be seen in age-old myths. Oppression of women, which is relevant to the present day, but it could be seen in age-old myths. All these characters are observed with a conflict between free will and patriarchy. They are bounded by the social norms. Thus, she recreated these ignored women as independent individuals and empowered women. Thank you, ma'am.
Sorry, it was, thank you so much. It was a wonderful paper, very elaborate. And you talked about women as being myth makers. I mean, you've talked about myth making and the patriarchal narratives in myths, and also about the three characters, Urvi, Urmila, and Menika.
Menaka.
Yes, yes. In fact, there was it was you really put the facts about Urmila to us, about Kekai also, the revelation that she actually wanted Rama to go into exile so that he is saved, his life is saved. So, very well researched paper on the works of the writer that you have chosen to research on, and all the best. Because we are running short of time, I think I'll move on to the next paper.
Thank you, ma'am.
Otherwise, we could have had more discussion on this. So, I invite Aditi Guha Thakurta.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Are you here?
Yes, I am.
I can't see you. Can you please switch on your camera?
Yes, sure.
I can see Ujjala Sharma. I can't see Aditi Guha.
Okay, ma'am. I think.
Yeah, and
Yes.
you're
Yes, ma'am.
presenting your paper on
Yes, ma'am. I have a presentation, so I'll just switch
border
that on.
lines and identities, a study of select portions of partition and fiction, gendered perspectives in border, Bangla, Bagar, Deval. Okay. So this is your paper, please.
Yes.
Start
I
your
have
presentation.
a presentation, a PPT. I'll just open that, ma'am. Okay. Okay. Just give me a minute, ma'am. I'll just open this. Good afternoon. My topic is Borderlines and Identities, a study of select portions of partition and fiction, gender perspectives, and border, Bangla, Bhager Deal, which loosely translates as border, a line that divided Bengal. Independence of the Indian subcontinent, or the partition of 1947, created a vacuum and a stupor that many are still reeling under. The two works discussed effectively recreate the time and its repercussions through the narratives and the commentaries on the pre-existing narratives. To understand the impact of the giant upheaval, it is crucial to look both at the oral testimonies and the fictional narratives on partition, which collaboratively foreground the trauma, the tragedy, and the loss, the human angle that historical and political discourses fail to capture in totality. The narrations establish in their own ways the commotion that engulfed the subcontinent and consumed peace and prosperity, which was considered to be not just a handiwork of the colonial leaders. The divide and rule was at every level. While some managed to cross the border penniless and battered, close to 2 million were killed and around 75,000 women abducted and raped. Isabella Bruschi, in her book, looks at partition and its fallouts from the male and the female perspectives through a detailed and evaluative reading of the men's voices and the women's voices in partition fiction. She calls her study of Atia Hussein's Sunlight on a broken column, an alternative archive of partition, of Anita Desai's Clear Light of Day, the distant echoes of partition, and Manju Kapoor's Difficult Daughters, a second generation look at the partition of India. The transition in the political scene flows parallel to the changes in the social structure. Laila's coming to age coincides with the fall of the patriarchal. Laila begins to question the restrictions, physical and emotional, which Parda imposes. She also retaliates against arranged marriage, self-sacrifice, and subservience to the male counterparts. Her uncle Hamid takes up the reins of the family after Baba Jan's death. Adept to Western modernity, he gets rid of the conservatism. Laila is sent for higher studies. Her exposure to liberal ideas makes her critical of the shallowness of his uncle's ways of living and acquainting in name of progress. The loyalties of the family members are divided, and the partition seals the fate of the country as well as theirs. Ashiana, their house, crumbles like a pack of cards. And when Laila returns after 14 years, it is decayed and just a shelter for refugees. Hossein, in an interview, shares that she wanted to write about the agonizing heartbreak when families were split and a brother and sister were separated and families could not be together for weddings, births, or deaths. The class conflict, the political strife without and within the family, the superficialities of those in power and position emerge in the story that forge details on the trauma of partition. Anita
I'm sorry to
Desai's-
interrupt.
Hello?
Your PPT is not working. We can see only one slide. Can you just move it ahead?
Mom, it's the same year. It's just a
Okay,
year of
okay.
the whole thing.
All right. So can you
yes.
please hurry up, because I think it's almost 4 o'clock and it's time for next session. So can kindly just rush up, please.
Yes, ma'am. I'll do that. I'll do that. Anita Desai's novel is made of 4 parts, which is parts 1 and 2, which provide the foreground, and the parts 2 and 3 talks about the partition of India and Pakistan. It is set in Old Delhi, and it's a confrontation with the past, which resulted the present being as it is. Difficult Daughters is a progressive awareness of the consequences stemming from choices. Both Vimati and her daughter Ida has undergone a sense of entrapment. They have been misunderstood and they have suffered from a sense of guilt with the realization of the separation between appearance and reality. In spite of the ordeal, men and women, especially from Bengal, kept on their attempts to return to their homeland and start afresh. The journey was full of dangers and the home still an unsafe land. Many were forced to do the trip back in a few months as matters deteriorated. The guards at borders, the fanatics at nooks and corners, and the touts fed on their helplessness and desperation. Jhana Basu writes that in December 1949 in Kalshira, 347 houses were plundered and looted. In December 1950, in Borishal, 11 members of the relative's family were killed and their heads cut and left at an entrance. Neither money nor strength in numbers prevented their being butchered by fundamentalists. The narrative is also on the pathetic plight of many who oscillated between lands in hope of some relief. However, the suffering never ceased. In 1971, Basu lost her father. The killers were Bengalis. The only difference was in the religious identity. Sita Sarkar looks at the happy times when the thorns of suspicion, doubt, distrust were absent and lives were simpler. The news of partition forced her parents to change her school from Dinajpur to Kishorganj. However, things soon changed. At the age of 14, she was forced to separate from her parents and siblings to keep the latter safe. Though her journey on train was quiet, the remnants of the previous ransacking, the bloodstains all around, unnerved her. The memoirs in the book encompass the binaries, the focus of the men and the women in the memoirs differ in the depictions and the details. The men and the women have distinctive voices, as opined by Isabella Bruschi. They differ in the choice of themes, in their treatment, and their narrative strategies. The interpretive keys in the writings are different, and the experience that descend are from the distinct social roles. It is important for a reading, examination, and analysis of both, for they are relevant to decode the reality and spell it out and make India's past more intelligible. Women writers have a greater force in depicting female characters as victims of violence. The discourses tell the plight of generations oscillating between indecision, unwillingness, and uncertainty. They also highlight the angst and agony hovering over millions till date. Partition is much more than a political decision gone wrong. It inflicted wounds that would never heal. The exit from homeland was not meant to be smooth, but the escape and the shelter in a new place was even more challenging. It brought in newer and bigger struggles for shelter, food, survival, and identity. Yet amidst all the darkness, humanity resurfaced. The narratives deal also with the resilience, the eagerness to move on. The land left behind is forsaken but not forgotten. It remains a marker of who they are. The men and women are self-conscious about their identity and social standing. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, thank you so much.
I'm
So
sorry,
you,
I had to really cut it short, ma'am.
yeah, but I could not see any of your slides, but it's okay. It was a well-researched paper and very well streamlined also. And you have definitely brought, tried to bring in and present the trauma, tragedy, and loss that you mentioned, and also about the political decision that had gone wrong. And it is one of the best partition literature, I think, that you had picked up. So thank you so much for your paper.
Thank you, ma'am.
And I'd like to, I think this was the last paper. I'd like to take your leave, please. The admin to take over, please. Mm, I'm afraid there's nobody here. The admin, please. Or we can ask the next chairperson. I don't know who the next chairperson is.
Ma'am,
Yes. Are you
I
chairing?
left.
You are left. Which paper are you presenting? Your name is not reflecting here.
Correlation between family origin and education.
I'm sorry, I did not have the details of your paper. But anyway, please, if you are presenting, then carry on.
The topic for my research paper is Correlation between Family Origin and Education in Roots by Arnold Whisker.
Are
A
you,
society places a
sorry, are you in technical session 5?
yes, ma'am.
Okay, okay.
A society places a higher weight on family history than it does on the moral principles and human feelings. In civilized contemporary society, women must realize the value of education and information. As depicted in the drama Roots, Betty Brant, the play's female lead, is important to the plot of Roots. Betty, who is in love with Ronnie Khan, travels back to her home country love relationship. The difference between the family background is relevant in shaping the life of Betty. Arnold, Arnold, one of Britain's seminal post-war playwright, highly inspired by the kitchen sink drama Look Back in Anger, written by John Osborne, uses a similar concept based on the family the character to analyze the importance of family roots and education in a women's life. The British cultural movement, known as kitchen sink realism, was first appeared in the late 1950s and early 1960s and is best known for its portrayal of the man as the major created by John Osborne's kitchen sink realism piece Look Back in Anger. Disillusionment with socialist principle is the in the areas of interpersonal connections with the family is a major theme in many of his books. His critically acclaimed Whisker trilogy explores this issue of distinct ways in which socialism is applied in the context of interpersonal connections. Three plays make up Wesker's trilogy Chicken Soup with Barley, in which Arnold quotes, "If the electrician who comes to mend my fuse blows it instead, so I should stop having electricity. I should cut off my light. Socialism is my light. Can you understand that?" And the second play is Roots, in which Wesker has quoted education and only books and music. It's asking questions all the time. There are millions of us all over the country, and not one of us is asking questions. We are all taking the easiest way out. And the third part of the book is I am talking about Jerusalem. Roots is a beautiful, rich, and at times Roots is a beautiful, rich, and Roots is a beautiful, rich, and at times infuriating piece that has a strong claim to being Arnold Wesker's greatest dramatic achievement. Extraordinarily moving in the last act, the detailed truth of this production combined to make Roots feel very special indeed.
Can you please
The
hurry up?
complete The complete Wesker trilogy, based on Wesker's working class Jewish background, was first performed in 1960 at Royal Court Theatre. The play is set in Norfolk and is loosely connected with Chicken Soup with Barley through the young intellectual Ronnie. The character of Ronnie Khan has been presented in all three plays of Wesker trilogy. The opening act is set in Beale's family house as Betty Brant, the protagonist or the voice of Whisker in the play, returns to Norfolk and prefers to stay for a while with her married sister. A cultured person is one who is characterized by refined taste and manners and good education. All these attributes of culture imply that we are and what our culture is. culture exists because it could be embodied in civilization. It is shown well in Roots by Arnold Wesker through Betty. The process of civilization brings a place and people to a phase where they can be developed social and culturally to realize a more advanced stage of human existence. Betty is impressed by Ronnie and feels happy as he has opened her eyes to new things and interests, new possibilities for herself as well as for other family members. Betty felt that while living at her sister's home, Betty felt that the Beals were living a miserable life in a house which is deprived of electricity and modern facilities. Betty is the only character in the play who gets familiarized with Western culture and compared to other
Can you please wind up fast?
characters of the play.
Your voice
The
is
use of
cracking. Kindly
local
wind up
language
fast,
by
please.
village people who read comics and she coaches Ronnie who accepts all kinds of activities and later on she tries to impress her parents uh, for her relation to accept her relationship with Ronnie who lives in London, and at one point her mother also states that Ronnie is like a preacher and she continuously quotes Ronnie, but at the end of the play Betty receives a
Uh,
letter of rejection from Ronnie and
kindly,
she felt
please,
and she
Pravgun, please wind up fast because we have the next session also coming up. I hope we don't have more speakers here. Please wind up your paper.
And to conclude my paper, I would like to say that Wesker has beautifully illustrated the value of education in one's life through variety of personalities. This change and realization have been presented in Arnold in a very delicate manner. Betty discovers her capacity for self-expression when her mother smacks her in front of rest of the family members, and we might infer that Betty's mother, Daphne, served as the inspiration for her transition and her desire to forge her own identity as a unique person in a world that was changing in spite of living in a male dominated society.
Yes, please wind up
Betty
fast.
represented the feminist society as she takes stand for her own rights as a woman. Ma'am, that's all.
Okay, thank you so
The
much. I'm
research
sorry I did not
paper.
have the details of your paper. All right, thank you. I'm sorry, I really did not have the details of your paper. And plus, your voice was also not very much audible, so I really can't make any comments on your paper. Anyway, thank you so much. All I could gather was that you had taken up some novel called Roots, and I'm talking about Jerusalem, and you're talking about some culture or something. So, anyway, thank you for reading out your paper here, and I hope we have no more speakers in technical session 5. So please, is it okay? Is it over now?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for
Okay,
handling
okay.
the session. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much.